Thursday, April 29th, 2021, we discuss a movie called Cool Hand Luke that I'm sure you've heard about and probably have seen, starring Newman's own Paul Newman and every kid's favorite actor, George Kennedy. Yay! Today with your host, me, Joe LaRocca. Kind of on a Oscar kick here, as you can tell. Watching some of the Oscar films that I had never seen before. And here's another one. Good old Cool Hand Luke. I'd seen like scenes, famous scenes from this, but never the movie in its entirety. And it is directed by Stuart Rosenberg. And I think it's about nonconformity. But I think they also make it about Jesus, which is really bizarre. Something I don't fully understand about it. Anyway, the movie opens with Paul Newman, and he is cutting the heads off of parking meters to get the coins out, and he's super drunk, and the cops show up, and he starts laughing, because they're like, what are you doing, dude? And he's like, and then it just freezes on him. It says Cool Hand Luke, and you go, oh, I get it. I know what this is going to be about. And it's not about that, because he's a very interesting character, because he's not the hooligan you think he is. So he gets put on a chain gang, paving roads in the South. And it's essentially about, it's a prison movie about him, becoming ingratiated into the group of workers, prisoners, and doing a whole bunch of kind of, I don't know, there's some Shawshank Redemption in there, like, where it almost, some parts of it make prison seem like it's kind of fun, when it, obviously, it's not fun at all. It's a horrible nightmare. But anyway, what we find out very early on is that he was a sergeant in the army, and he was a good soldier, and he was, like, incredibly decorated, and that, he just doesn't follow the rules, because by the time he left the army, he was a private. So he kind of obviously got knocked out, but he's a hero. So you go, oh, interesting. If this guy's a hero and all this stuff, why is he committing petty vandalism? And then you start thinking, maybe the war took a toll on him, and now he's got nothing to do, and he's just kind of become a drunk. I'm Carl. Any man don't keep orders spending a night. So Carl is the guy who runs sorry, I was trying to do a quote there, but I wrote it down wrong. Basically, if you don't follow the rules, you spend the night in the box. They say that a lot. You spend the night in the box. And that kind of establishes what kind of, it's like he's in the military again, right? This is, he needs the structure. And I like that they always say, get at them beans when it's time to eat. That's my favorite line. Get at them beans. I'm going to start saying that to people when it's time to eat. All right, get at them beans. So yeah, early on there's a famous scene where a blonde bombshell washes her car in front of the chain gang, and she is quite erotic, especially, I can't imagine, 1967. People must have been like, yeah, anyway, and then what's the great moment is that after that scene, after the guys get all kind of keyed up, the next scene they're in the shower, and they just start fighting each other. And you're like, I see what's going on here. Pretty interesting. Yeah, it's good. So then, really, what is the movie about? Because I'm not just going to go through it and tell you all the little things. If you haven't seen it, it is on Netflix. George Kennedy ends up, starts out his nemesis, then ends up his buddy. And they become friends, because then after that they have a fist fight where he just doesn't stop. He just keeps, where Cool Hand Luke just keeps getting his ass whooped. You're gonna have to kill me. And you're like, oh geez, this guy can take a lot. And then he earns a lot of respect from the fellow inmates because of his ability to take punishment. Then there's kind of a boring scene that I think could have been trimmed down, where he's talking with his auntie, or is that his mom? See, that's what I get confused about, because he calls her auntie, but it would make more sense if it was his mom. But I don't know. There's this woman, like, it comes and like shows up to like talk to him. I think it's because I went and peed right before the scene, so I kind of didn't understand where the scene was coming from. So maybe I shouldn't criticize it based on the. I like got up and put Odie out or something, and I came back and he's talking to like an old lady in a van, and I was like, "What's going on here?" Then soon after that is probably the most famous scene. I could eat 50 eggs in an hour. And you're like, "Oh my god, what's going on here?" And it starts a sequence that lives on in the annals of history, film history at least, slowly, like, training him, like jogging him and stretching his belly and getting everything ready, and then the argument over whether he needs to shell his own eggs, and I'm an egg sheller, I'm his coach, and all this stuff, and it really starts to build up like the camaraderie and the fun and stuff, and the fraternity of the whole thing, and it just starts feeling really, really like, oh, this is a blast, and he eats 50 eggs. And he basically nearly dies, and that scene ends. That scene is not shot in a way that I like. Zoom lenses were very new at the time, where you could do those kind of quick zooms. I think most modern audiences associate that with, like, if you've ever seen the Pai Mei sequence in Kill Bill 2, like whip zooms, those are kind of even more extreme, because they could even go even further in the 70s, where they basically, zoom lenses became faster, meaning that they could capture light quicker, so that you could, I don't know, they just became way popular, and you see tons of whip zooms at the end of the 60s and early 70s. This sequence has a lot of like these little zooms, and you're like, I get it must have been cool at the time, but it's one of the things that makes it seem a little bit dated, because we don't really do it too much anymore, unless you're kind of like doing a thing, as they say. So that scene, I don't really like how it's shot, but yeah, he eats all of it, and you're like, oh my god, he's gonna die. And then that sequence ends with him lying in the Christ pose, like crucified on a table, and that's when you start going, wait, what? Why are there all these why is there all this Christ imagery? I remember my buddy Colin, who's been on the show. He's like I remember him liking this movie, and he liked the poster. The poster's sweet. I think he had it in college or something. So I'm watching it. I just go, I text him. I go, in what way is Cool Hand Luke like Jesus? And he just took a little while and paused and was like, wrote back, I don't know. They're probably just throwing it in there, so like you think that there's, so that it makes you think that there's some sort of meaning behind it. I was like, I don't know. So I really been thinking about it. So after the guy, after he eats all the eggs and he does the Christ pose stuff, he has this scene where it's raining out, and he's like, there is no God. He's like, if God's here, show him to me. And he's like it's just me standing in the rain talking to myself. But then the next scene, his mother dies. Maybe there is a God. Ooh boy. Yeah. And so I'm just trying to decide how much. I guess I'll tell you one more scene, and then I won't give you any more plot. But then he sings "Plastic Jesus" on a banjo after his mother dies by himself in the bunk. And it's awesome. It's totally the type of scene I'd want to make in a movie. It's my favorite scene in the movie. I love it. I love it so much. It's beautiful. Paul Newman, you're the man. And then we kind of get into the third act, where he goes on a Sisyphusian odyssey of continually being escaping and getting thrown back in, and getting increasingly heavier chains and thrown in the box and all this stuff, until the climax, where they try to see if they can break him. And I'll let you guys watch the movie to see if they break him or not. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool movie. But the Christ imagery, I mean, the only thing that I finally came down on was that he gives people hope. Like Cool Hand Luke is like, it's like the folklore of Cool Hand Luke. It's like that movie Mud, you know. It's like a character. He's like not even a real person, you know. And so in that sense, you could be like, oh, it's like Jesus. Like he ends up being a story that maybe it's not real, or maybe Jesus was terrified, maybe Jesus was broken, but he still made the right choices, and because of that, we can look to him as a martyr or as something that gives us hope. And so, in that sense, he is like Jesus. And it took me a while, not a while, to get to that, but I think, do you guys, is that what it is? Because otherwise, it's like, what is this movie about? Because the character itself is not much like Jesus in that, I don't know, I guess Jesus kind of is the ultimate nonconformist now that I think about it. Huh. Well, I'll have to think about that. But yeah, it's a good movie, little bit dated, a lot of classic stuff in there, maybe a little bit long. Even though it's just a little over 2 hours, but I did start feeling a little bit dragging in the middle part there. And then obviously the thing that it makes prison seem like pretty cool, which is, not the case, obviously, which is one of the problems I have with Shawshank. It's like, I don't have, my God, like the best friends I've ever heard of. All right, let's do a little weird music. Fuck, I got a migraine coming on, I just realized. How is that possible? Fuck. I can't see anything. It's over here. Life is a nightmare. See you guys tomorrow.